All right, I think we're recording. Natalie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So this is How Did I Get Here? Same as it never was. And what we're doing is I'm taking the chance to interview some real, what I think are real music fans and figure out a little bit of how they got here musically. And what I usually do, and I know you're a little concerned because it's a math question, but it's not a real math question. So what I want you to do, just imagine 100 random people pulled off the street, totally random. How many of those people out of 100 do you think music would be more important to them than you?
So I know you've asked this question before, so I've given it some thought. I'm
Yeah.
not a numbers person.
Yeah.
I think there's two answers here. Up until the age of like 28, 29, music was my life. Like my whole life was about music. Like
Right.
I would be in that 95 percentile and plus.
Yeah.
As I got into my 30s and I settled down in Toronto, um, became a mom, had a mortgage, things changed.
Sure.
So music's always in my house. It's always playing. Am I actively hunting the way I used to? No. Am I just spending my every waking hour thinking about the next concert, festival, or party? No.
Yeah.
Or dead show or club or whatever, which took up so much of my life. No. So things have changed, but that's why I love the group that we're in, because I'm learning new things and I've gotten lazier for sure. So it's helpful.
All right. So let's do this. What's your earliest memory of music being important to you, or something musical, something that you just can conjure up way back?
So I am the daughter of someone who owned a bar on Queen West. It was a dive bar in the late 60s and 70s. My dad owned a bar called the Claremont. It was actually a hotel and the bar was called the Ring and Tap. So my earliest memories are going to that dive bar. I was like 3, 4, 5 years old. The smell of beer. I mean, it was kind of disgusting, but I was intrigued.
Right.
And my mom was always worried because it was like Queen West back in that time was really dicey.
Yeah.
So I just remember just sort of being fascinated by that bar. And there was a drum kit that I played on. And it was just like, old town rock and roll kind of stuff playing at the bar. And actually, Rush played there because, in the very early 70s, as did Max Webster.
Yeah.
I don't recall any of that, but that was when I was a wee little girl. So that's probably my earliest.
Okay, so now, your most recent musical sort of musical event, musical something. Figure out where we are, where we started, where we're coming from, and then we'll try to link them together.
I mean, I don't see as many concerts as I want to anymore. It's prohibitive price-wise, and I've seen a few. I think I will have to say just what's happening for me now is my daughter plays guitar, thanks to Jam Lab. She's been playing for 4 years. So like every day I'm just trying to turn her on to the music of my life. And she's just finally opening up to it. Like she's moving out of like Adam Levine and like sort of the pop stars and the Stones and the Dead, and like sort of that is what's happening for me right now, is trying to like mold my daughter into the music that I loved.
Okay,
so at least expose her. I can't mold her. She's gonna like what she likes.
Sure. So you're coming from a place where you're exposed very early on to a musical milieu.
Yes.
At the bar, and now you're at a point where your daughter is playing, and that is something that's important to you, as it seems that it's some sort of a connection between your daughter and you. Being at a point where turning your daughter onto music that's important to you is something that's important. So
and I wish I learned guitar young. Like I'm so envious. I think she's just like the coolest kid. Like she writes her own music now. She's super talented. She's good at what she does. She just like has an effortless ability to pick something up and be able to master it. Like she's also an incredible rock climber.
Right.
I had to work really hard at things. She just has this like natural ability.
All right. So what I want to do.
I'm proud.
What I want to do is I want to figure out some of the connecting points in between, and I like to call them kind of pivot points.
Yeah.
You're moving along and you're musically interested in something. Then all of a sudden there's like this aha moment where it's like, oh my goodness, I've been doing something wrong, or there's this whole world I never knew existed.
Yeah.
And before we were on, like, if you guess you call this on the air, you said you had a number of them. So I don't really want to discuss them immediately in detail. Let's just kind of list them off, and we'll again try to figure out if there's some theme or something that means something in all of this. And maybe it doesn't mean anything, but we'll see.
Okay. I just want to start by saying, like, I think I was born in 1968. I think being a Gen X person, we just were able to cover so many amazing musical moments. Like, I do really, like, I think we're in this very nostalgic period, and I've now that we've been home for a year, I've looked back and just like amazing music that transpired from the early 70s just to 2000. Like, it's phenomenal what we've been a part of through our growth years. So I've been a part of many of them. So I went to overnight outside. So my dad also was a big jazz fan. So outside of just what I heard in the bar, my early memories of him playing Sarah Vaughan and Ella in my house, which he loved. I probably didn't understand it until much later, but he loved that early jazz music, female voices. So I always gravitated to a lot of female singer-songwriters. And my mom was sort of into big band and was a dancer, did ballroom dancing. So kind of old fashioned, but a definite love of music and dancing, which is a big part of my life, which I will talk about.
Okay, so you said camp. I heard you say camp.
Camp, yeah.
And what's another pivot point?
So camp, and then into the 77, I was in dance, and it was all disco, right? So
you were in dance as a performer?
Yes. Yeah, I was a young kid that took dance all the way up until my bat mitzvah, pretty much.
Did you have flashy pants?
I had all those silky, satiny, absolutely, leg warmers and all that good stuff.
Okay, so camp, dance as a performer. What else?
And so then it always comes back to dance. Like, I love the music, but I always had to be a part of it. Like, I was never a passive observer of music. Like, so by like junior high, so then I always think bar mitzvahs was a very pivotal stage. I have dance parties every weekend for, button bar mitzvahs and DJs, and the songs that were really pivotal then. And then into grade 8 and 9, I started to move into sort of the new wave, the Specials, the Beat, the Police, Bow Wow Wow, just a lot of these bands that I started loving.
That's junior high, or that's high schoolish?
That's junior high, grade 8, 9. Yeah. Then by high school, I was a sort of new wave kid, two-tone, ska, early reggae. I met a guy who corrupted me and turned me on to the Dead. I think that was grade 10 when I went to Fleming. And then my high school years were all about the Dead.
Yeah, 4 years of the Dead.
Yeah.
So you and I are the same vintage, and the Dead, it's interesting because in my high school times, the Dead was like totally off my radar.
Right.
Like nothing. It had nothing to do with my radar. Okay, so then after the Dead, now after the Dead, what happened? What were some other pivotal points?
So
we'll go back. We're going to go back to cover some of this stuff.
Okay, so in university, I was still very much into the Dead, all the way through my university years. Mm-hmm. And all the classic rock and roll, like whatever all the music the Dead brought up, which was everything. But it was sort of coming back to a lot of the music I learned in the 70s. Right. Then after I finished my BA, I went traveling, which I thought was going to be 6 months. It turned into 7.5 years, pretty much. And then I got turned on to this sort of a Goa trance scene, electronic dance music, Goa trance.
Goa trance. Okay.
So I was really fortunate to be at these amazing free parties in Goa and Kopangan.
Where?
In India.
Okay.
So that would have been 91, all through the 90s, like 91 to 98, which took a while for me to get into, but in many ways it was a natural progression coming out of that psychedelic journey from the Dead into this sort of electronic trance scene.
Okay.
And I can explain that in more detail.
So, and are there any other pivot points?
I mean, those are sort of the big ones. And then when I came back to Toronto in my early 30s, I had a boyfriend who was a DJ, and going to clubs back in Toronto at Roxy Blue and Unamas and that whole scene. I was definitely like an elder by that point. But there was sort of a different sort of more housey club vibe that I was into. And that sort of winds it down until I got married in my mid 30s.
Right.
Yeah.
And then things, life takes
Yeah.
over, and there's,
Yeah.
okay, so let's look first at the bookends here.
Okay.
The connection that you're making with music with your daughter,
Yeah.
and the connection that you're making with your parents, or your mother and your father,
Yeah.
through the jazz bar. It's
Dive bar. It wasn't a jazz bar. It was a dive bar.
bar. Okay, no, but it's semantics. It seems to me that you're connecting to people on a higher level through music.
Yes.
Okay.
Very much like the community. I'm such a community person. And that's what always appealed to me. Like just the connections I made, the sense of community, friendship, family, traveling, exploration. It tapped into so many things that were interesting to me.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
so so that makes sense to me, and just knowing what I know about you.
Yeah.
But so your earliest memories with your parent, like, is music like one and the same with the high quality memories of your childhood?
With my parents specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of different. My mom, I always sort of thought hers was really old fashioned, like, because it was big band, ballroom dancing stuff. So that seemed like old to me. And
But the dive bar scene,
that seemed cool. That seemed dangerous and cool. I mean, even as a kid, my mom never wanted me to go. She didn't want my dad to take me, and I wanted to go.
and so do you see the same are you trying to make the same connection with your daughter?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, like, is your importance, like you recognizing her being a musician as being something that's important? I mean,
Yeah.
you sort of said something about, I kind of wish I was.
Yeah.
I wish, she can go beyond from where I wanted to go, and this.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the family, the family, and the using music as a connection. Am I making this up, or is this something that's ringing?
No, I think it was there. It probably wasn't as strong, perhaps, as I would have liked.
With your daughter or with your parents?
With my parents, yeah.
Right.
There was definitely a generational disconnect,
Right.
And I didn't really appreciate my dad's music until my teens, because when you're 4 or 5 years old, it's hard to appreciate like these like jazz chanteuses. Like it was like out of my realm. So it took me a while to come back and appreciate my dad's taste.
Right. So then you go to camp.
Yes.
And camp, for those who haven't been to a camp, overnight camp is quite an incubator for music.
Yes.
You have competing people playing music, people fighting for musical dominance within a cabin setting, and some things stick and some things don't, and a lot of it's connected. Am I right with your experience? I mean, that was my experience. So in terms of was there any connection? Was there any dance? Did dance come into the camp?
Socials on Saturday night. Oh my God.
So tell me about your Saturday night social.
So every Saturday, I was just one of those girls who loved dance always. I loved socials. I later learned that a lot of people did not love those socials because it was awkward for them and they didn't dance, or they weren't asked to dance. Like, I didn't care. I was up dancing.
Or they're self-conscious, or
they're self-conscious. Exactly. Yeah. I was always in my element on a dance floor.
Right.
Always. Very, very much at home. And I didn't care who. I mean, I don't think it even affected me even that young, like who was around. I would ask guys to dance. I would ask the counselors to dance. I would dance by myself. Like I danced to every song.
So what is it? What's this need for dance? Like what is it? Because it's, you don't have to dance, and a lot of people would choose not to.
Yeah.
So where is it from?
I have to move. I don't know. Movement is really crucial to me. I'm always dancing, stretching. Like it's funny. I don't work out. Like I'm not a gym person. I do like yoga. I like Pilates. I like movement more than I like sweating and doing that sort of weightlifting stuff.
Right.
But I need to move. It's like it's essential for me.
You stay
And I love to
mindful.
connect to music and move.
Stay mindful of that now, like as you know, stressful times, you stress and just get
Oh
out,
yeah.
and you get the same thing out of it as you are here now as you did back when you were at camp and dancing with your friends in the cabin or dancing at a social or things like that.
I always dance in my kitchen. Like I embarrass my kid and dance. I dance in the car if I'm bopping around. Like I'm just that's how music impacts me. It makes me want to move for the most part. And then there's lots of music. Obviously, I just want to say that I love a lot of slow music and sad music and just all the emotional connection one has. Like I love that too. So there's just all different facets how it affects me. But I
Right.
love to dance.
Do you have you know, again, I'm trying to figure out connections and
Yeah.
themes. That's really kind of where I'm going. So, do you have any memories back in the dive bar of just dancing behind, like you being 3 or 4 and having movement involved in that?
I just remember the drum kit. I mean, it's so long ago. I remember playing on
Sure.
the drum. I remember the smell of the beer. I remember the characters. I don't think I danced then per se. I might have been a little self-conscious, but I was like 4, 5,
Oh
6,
yeah,
7.
you're just a kid, right?
Yeah. But I went to sleepover camp at 7, and that's, socials were every Saturday. And, it exposed me to all that sort of great music of that era, like Paul McCartney and Wings and Elton John and Billy Joel. And then, all the different dance music and just people playing guitar. Like a lot of our counselors, I had a counselor who was an amazing guitar player. And
Right.
at night, like different counselors would come in and play music and sing you to sleep. And
Right. That was almost social currency. Like
yes,
if you
absolutely.
if you could play guitar,
Yeah,
like that, there was a status
for
attached to
sure.
that setting. I never knew how to, and I wish I did,
Yes.
but I never.
Girls dug it.
Absolutely, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense now.
Yes, right?
But okay, so then you move to dance as a performer.
Yes.
So it's now starting to take something you love
Yeah.
and it's starting to put pressure on it in some way. Or did it not matter? Did results not?
I never got into the competitive aspect of it. I did gymnastics as well. And in fact, I did gymnastics until I got to the competitive level, and then I stopped because it wasn't about competing for me. It was just about enjoying. And I focused more on dance because it was more collaborative and fun. And but in my early years of doing dance, like 76, 77, 78, it was all the disco. Like we did a whole thing to the Bee Gees, to Saturday Night Fever, and we all got a song. And I got How Deep Is Your Love, which was slow, and I was really bummed. I was actually
Oh,
quite
but that's
upset.
awesome.
It's a great song, but we all wanted at the time, I remember, this is something that I remember, you talk about memories, we all wanted Staying Alive, or, if we wanted to fast, we wanted like to move and groove,
Right,
not
right.
the.
Yeah. No, but that's interesting. It's like, it's I'm just those things like the dance moms, like those things just like that show Dance Moms,
Oh yeah.
it's fascinating, like what goes on and how it is, and sometimes I wonder if it ruins the music for people, but if you
Okay.
don't go too competitively, then
My mom literally would, this is the 70s. She dropped me off. I don't even remember my mom being around. Like I probably even went on the, I'm sure I know I took the bus by myself to the JCC in grade 4 and 5.
right,
So she was never around for that. Like it was a different era. She
right,
was
that's
not
very
involved.
true. That's
And maybe
very
that was
true.
also a part of it. There was some independence, like being on my own. I took to that early, as did many of us.
Okay, something interesting that you said is that you were part of the music and not passive.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that you're just not watching a performance and you are part of the performance. And that I think is something when we talk about the Grateful Dead that so resonated for me, that we were part of the performance, that, there were all these different groups of people. And Ira talked about that in his discussion with you. Like there were the tapers and there were the spinners and there were the hallway dancers. And there were the people that were just like, had to be up in the front row watching every move Jerry made. Like I was a dancer. I was part of that dance group of people. We all got to know each other when I was on tour. Like, I was often out in the hallway. So I wasn't even watching the band. It wasn't even about watching. It was about being a part of that performance. And then even earlier, before the Deb, when I started going to clubs, when I was way too young to be going to clubs, and I ended up at Voodoo and Twilight Zone, I was like 14, 15. It was just crazy stuff on that dance floor, like just performance art, like everyone sort of performing in their own way. And then that carried on again in my trance years, like just getting into your own space.
Like you say all these places again, you and I are the same vintage,
Yeah.
I heard of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I heard of the other place you said, but it's like, it's just amazing how you can be kind of sort of near the same community of each other and it's totally off on different.
Right. Where did you grow up?
I grew up like in around Fairview Mall.
Okay. I was at Baby North Mills, so we weren't far.
So not too far, but it's just like, so let's talk a little bit of, okay, so the bar mitzvah dance parties.
Yes.
That was obviously, so that would have been what kind of music?
I know my dance songs: Rock Lobster, Stars on 45, Echo Beach.
Yeah.
They were Time Warp. And my boyfriend, I had a boyfriend at the time, Robbie Cooper, and we won every dance contest. And I won albums. By the end of that year, I had a stack of albums. That was the prize, right? You won an album.
Right.
I had a lot of scores from bar mitzvah dance contests.
Awesome. Now, was it using dance to get attention? Was it using dance because it had to come out?
Yeah, I don't think it was for attention. I don't think that was my motivation.
Right. It wasn't the eyes being on you that was important.
No.
It was the music flowing through you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because some people want to be a dancer because they want everybody to look at them.
Yeah.
That's not my impression of you. So I'm glad that was your answer, because
I was still, it's not like I wasn't self-conscious. It was like, at times, of course I was, all throughout my sort of dance history. But right. It was more like that I felt the connection to dance.
Well, it's a weird thing, dance, right? Because it's like you're dancing, you're showing yourself off, you're there, you're exposing yourself, you're vulnerable.
Yes.
In a way. But you're hopefully moving somebody, but sometimes the way you move people could be creepy, I suppose. Right. There's this little like weird stuff going on, but at the end you're trying to be beautiful and do the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And did you experience anything along those? Like, I'm not looking to get into bad stories or anything.
Yeah, I've had a couple weird guys kind of slime onto me over the years, for sure.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. So where you're moving. So let's talk a little bit about the Jerry years, or the Grateful years.
Okay.
It's a phenomenon that is completely foreign to me.
Right.
Because the idea of standing around and going and following around a band and going to festivals and being outside is something that it wouldn't even have occurred to me as something that would be something that I would do. So I'm trying to understand it,
right,
as what's the need, that it's what itch is it scratching?
Right. I think there were so many things that it tapped into. It's sort of like this great road trip, and I'm a traveler at heart. Like, I love to travel, and obviously, and it was like a traveling circus. It was just this great, it was so Americana. It was like traveling across the country. I crisscrossed the states 4 times. I've been up each coast. Like, I've been almost every state. I think maybe about 8 or 9 I haven't, seeing Dead shows. So the whole road trip experience. And then you get to the town, wherever the concert is, and then you set up, and it was just like this traveling circus of friends. And sometimes there was tent scenes, and you camp for a few days, and just the scene in the lot was, the show was only a couple hours, but just everything around it, or just even a hotel scene. Like, I remember, one of my earliest road trips was to Hampton, Virginia, down the East Coast, and, staying in a Red Roof Inn for, I don't know, $13, $12 a night kind of thing. And,
$20, maybe it has a breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. And your whole motel was taken over with Dead fans, and all the doors were open. You would just walk in and go, "Hey, where are you from? Hey, how's it going?" And like everyone was open to meeting people and having fun. And yeah, it was just great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So one of the things I was kind of exploring with Ira was a little bit of like the religious zealousness
Yeah.
of people. Did you ever experience like sort of like religious kind of devotion and dedication or feelings or spirituality or anything along those lines through this, or was that foreign to your experience?
No, all the above.
Awesome.
So I mean, at one point I only listened to the Dead. Like when I was probably 16, 17, it was like no other band existed. Like, I remember REM was sort of up and coming, and I remember a friend who I met from Chicago on Dead tour was like, "Oh, this new band, REM." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Like it was just all I wanted to hear was the Dead, and that was it. And it was all cassettes back then. So I mean, there was a point of time where I should have been, and maybe I was listening to Dylan and Floyd and a few others, but not
Right.
much. So yes, there's that element. And then of course at the shows, of course, there was this massive devotion. I mean, people worshiped at the altar of Jerry. I mean, it was
Right.
like, um, and being a part of that collective experience of dancing with people, like a 2-hour experience. Like I remember at the end of it, I remember at a show in Chicago, just dancing my ass off. And at the end, like beside someone, I didn't say a word to them, but at the end, it was like we knew each other. I turned, we hugged each other. It was like we had dance bonded.
Wow.
We just is
No,
that
no,
sounding weird?
it's weird because you live your life and
Yeah,
you want to make connections with people.
yeah,
And I mean, through me, I guess I always made connections with people through humor and through like, you know,
yeah.
personability or whatever. I've never, if I ever went up to somebody and danced with them, they'd like tell me to fuck off just because like I don't think I could ever uh, get a connection with a person because I sat and danced. And and it sounds like it's amazing.
It was incredible. And it wasn't like I was dancing with him. We were both having our own personal experience for the whole show. And then like, every once in a while we glance over and like, when you kill her, you'd be like, whoa, okay. So you are making these connections throughout or with like one song leading to another. And like, there's this sort of, they go in and out and this play, it's like, what's coming, what's coming. And so there's just this nonverbal communication that you're sharing with people in that moment,
And
that you're not experiencing.
I'm fairly new to their music. They just were never on my radar. I've
Yeah.
only started exploring them, and it can go all over the place. And it can,
Yeah.
like, I think part of its appeal is it's kind of everything and nothing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense. It's like everything. Like it can go off into bluegrass. It can go off
Yeah.
into psychedelic. It can go off into who knows what they can do.
Yeah.
Like an old standard. It's just like
Country.
right, but it all has like it all is unified. There's the variety, but it's all unified probably mostly through Jerry's guitar and
Yeah.
then the superb thing. But it's just I don't know where I was going with with all of this, but it's just um, I can sort of understand, although the music doesn't quite speak to me the way it speaks to others. I can see that it has like elements that push you. Like if you want to go off here and Jerry's in
Mhm.
the mood, he's going to
Yeah.
take you there with him.
Yeah. But
And,
I do think it's a band that it really had to be experienced. I think that's where how I connect with music. It is the experiential quality of it.
right,
Whether you go to a club or a festival or a concert, like it's very different than just listening in your home. Even with, it's very different. Like
right,
be there. And the Dead especially, like a lot of people don't, it's not a band that you often just sort of put on without any experience and go, oh yeah, I love that song, because it's not like that, and they're not about albums or studio albums,
right.
they're about live gigs, like,
Yeah.
so.
And you never got into the extended jam band scene, I don't think.
So I sort of departed by that point. And by 91, I was in India and I got turned on to this whole electronic scene, which left all that well and truly behind. And in fact, I went back to a Dead show, I think the last one just before Jerry passed, unfortunately. And everything just seems so slow after being on like the BPMs and the dance, to go to a Dead show was just like, whoa, man, that is slow.
Right.
So it was weird.
Did it not appeal anymore?
At that stage, not as much. And then I sort of parked the Dead in a way for quite a while. And I was more into this new sort of electronic dance scene that sort of, and it harkened back to it like everything's circular. Like it harkened back to like my disco years, that my early sort of going to those clubs, like I said, to that electronic music, it all came back again, full circle. And then my friends from the electronic scene were like anti-rock, and then my rock friends were anti-EDM. And so,
Right.
I loved it all. Like,
Right.
and in fact, I saw continuity in a way that many did not. Like, I think a lot of my Deadhead friends would have loved those parties I went to in Goa, these free festivals I went on for like 12 hours with DJs on a beach or in the jungle or up in the Himalayas, amazing full moon parties, like, and I went to them all over the planet, Japan, Australia, Ibiza, England.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've been to
So again, travel, meeting people from all over the world, as opposed to just in America. It became just a bigger playground.
Right. So how do you end up in India for 7 years?
So I went with my sister. I finished university. She's a few years older than me. We thought we'd just backpack for 6 months. We just both fell in love with India at the end of that journey. And just made it our life. Like I started importing clothes and jewelry. Like I'd come back every summer, make some money, worked in bars and sold on weekends.
Canada. You come back.
Canada. And I went to San Francisco a few times as well.
Right.
But sold in markets, but I always came back here for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And but you're there and experiencing a whole different type of music. Is this European influenced via Indian influenced? Like what kind of this Goa? I don't know anything about it. Or Goa.
Right. So Goa is it's a Portuguese colony. And it's not like any other place in India. This is in the early 90s. Things are even completely different now.
Yeah.
But it was, a place that the American hippies sort of discovered in the late 60s. It was a part of this sort of route. People would go overland. The original hippie travelers from the 60s would just drive across, like drive through Afghanistan and Pakistan all the way across into India and ended up in Goa. And it was just sort of a free, very free place where people could just live on the beach in teepees, and at that time it was rock music.
So what's that scene like? I have no, like, to me it's just, I'm just picturing it and I can't.
Right. Well, at the time, I feel very lucky that I was there in the 90s, because I think the scene has really changed. I was sort of there at a great period for this type of music, because the parties were free.
Right.
And it was just emerging. It was sort of very up and coming, like, right. I think if, as a Deadhead, the time to see the Dead was the 70s. I unfortunately got to see them in the 80s. So I missed the golden era. I do believe I was in the golden era of trance music in Goa in the early 90s, because they were free parties. And it wasn't,
were the substances that were going around were not as dangerous as they might be.
Yes, 100%. It was
very,
very, yes.
Play into why it's like a golden age, because it's like, yes. Okay, maybe not completely safe, but more safe.
I would say so, yes. Right. And yeah.
And the music, like when I don't even really know what trance is. Like that's how, I'm a big music lover. Yeah. Just the dance end of things. Once you got past Denise Williams, I don't know.
Right. He's a great DJ.
I want to hear. Let's hear it for the boy. I mean, that's about as far as I go. Boney M. So what is trance? What is like? Is that just a different way for music to flow through your body into movement?
Yes. So essentially that's what trance does. It's like you connect with the music, and because it goes on for so long, like the parties start very late at night.
Mhm.
you show up on your motorcycle in the middle of the night and you just hear the do like in the distance, and there's like little posses of people and we're all trying to find the party.
Right.
And you hear it off in the distance and it's echoing and you get closer and closer and then you're there. And then there's all these like chai mamas, all the Indian ladies with their chai mats, which was again very much like a dead show spread out. And you had your chai lady who took care, like she would you'd leave your purse with them and your passport or your money, whatever you had, and they
And you
like
could trust them.
100%. Like, I mean, my passport was locked up, but whatever your valuables were, your key to your motorcycle, whatever, you'd hand
That's
them.
wild.
And they took care of it for the night. And that was your chai mat. That was your like safe space. And then I had my chai mat posse. Like we all got this group of friends over the years. That was like Juanita was my chai lady, and there was Baby, and there was Babs, like whatever all the other ladies were. You had your chai lady. And then at like, in the darkness, it was pretty intense, darker music. And then then between 3 and 5 in the morning, it was like the mental music, like, really dark, people going inside in themselves. And then as the sun started to rise, you get the lighter sunrise music. So like, it really was this arc, this journey of like entrance music, like as people start to arrive, 3 to 5, that mental music, and then the lighter. So you are on this like,
Right.
and then sometimes at the end of the party, like it was on the beach, you had your bathing suit, off you go into the water. It's fabulous.
Right. Right. And it's a whole day-long experience designed to put you through every emotion
Yeah.
exists and to get out of you every feeling and dopamine or whatever,
Yeah.
every ounce of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
And this scene was safe.
Yeah. It was, I think at the time it was, I mean, I still think by and large it's pretty safe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
I mean, the police were paid off. There was like like they were paid off for these parties. Now they're charging. Now it's like a full business, to go to these parties.
sure.
But at the time, the cops were paid off, and you could just go and do your thing. And the locals made a lot of money off of all the tourists, clearly. So there was a symbiotic thing happening that was allowed for many, many years.
Right. That's just wild. And
Yeah.
this is when I'm like, for me, I'm in law school and I'm going and like,
Right.
gonna get married, and it's
Right.
just wild to me. Like, it's just, it's like you lived a movie to me, and
Yeah.
that's just crazy. But it's like, it sounds like fun. So one other thing I want to explore, if you don't mind, is just like a lot of people, or a couple, I mean, I've only done 2 of these, but I think the sense of either fitting in or not fitting in through music was really important.
Mhm.
Was there any element of I don't really fit in here, but I'm going to use music as a way to work my way into a group that to find my people?
I
Or was
think it kind of happened the other way around. Like, I think I
your people found you?
kind of like, I've been able to slide in and out of a lot of musical scenes quite
Right.
effortlessly in my life. Um,
Well, some people are, it's easier for them to
yeah.
fit in. And I would suspect, speaking to you, you're somebody that can kind of, you're a bit of a, and I don't mean this in a negative connotation, you can be a bit of a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that word has some negative connotations in
No,
it.
I take that as a compliment. Yes, I think it's a valuable asset, especially when you travel all over the world.
Right, because you can, and like, it's funny because I think that I'm a bit of a shapeshifter in other ways,
Yeah.
and I don't mean in that, like, I can kind of, you want to talk about this, I can make it seem like I know something about it, or at least be interested in it.
Right.
But you could go from scene to scene, and you could probably go to like a Japanese drum festival and
Yeah.
go and find the person that's going to dance next to you at the drum festival and
I'd
have.
pick up a drum and be drumming. Like, I'd be that person. Like,
Right.
Yes.
Right. So do you think that a lack of inhibition is what has made you successful in this? Like the not feeling self-conscious?
Yes. No, I think
Or
it's
was
just
it a
not.
tool to get over self-consciousness? Like, it can go 2 ways. One is like, I'm going to act this way because I need to get through this, or this is just me and I don't have these inhibitions that other people seem to have, and they're sitting there on the side bored, and I'm having the time of my life. Like, which one do you think is it, or is it none of the above?
I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, just when the music spoke to me, I wasn't as self-conscious. I didn't dwell on it. It was more like being as opposed to thinking. Like I just got out of my head and got into my heart, if you know what I mean.
So um, it's what the sense that I've gotten is whether you've been at a bar mitzvah,
Yeah.
whether you've been anywhere, the Grateful Dead concert or anywhere, that it's about the musical experience, and it's
Yeah.
about the a flow,
Yes.
and about in your body, and not leaving your body, like transforming your whole being through the music, through the community.
Yeah.
And that's what's been important to you. And is that where you're going with your daughter? Are you hoping that she can experience that? Are you afraid that she's going to
Yeah.
experience
A little afraid.
like afraid, being a protective mama,
Yeah.
oh my God, what did I used to do these things? What was I going to? Or is it, what, this has been so important to me, I want to promote this because she needs to have these sorts of things?
That's a really good question. And I don't really have an answer yet because I don't know. She's going to be 12 tomorrow.
Okay.
So
So
I've got time to worry. She's a homebody, unlike me. Like she doesn't go to sleepover camp, much to my chagrin.
right.
She's an only child as well. She's very connected to both of us. Like we are a very tight unit of three.
Yeah.
She likes to travel, but staying in fancy hotels, she said to me at one point, because my husband also spent time in India and has done quite a lot of traveling on his own. And she said to me at one point, Mom, no offense. Because I said, oh, maybe we'll do a sabbatical year and travel, the three of us. And she's like, no offense, Mom. I don't really want to rough it like you and Dad did. It doesn't appeal to me. So she's more like my mother-in-law, like in the finer things. I can't see her. I mean, anything can change, but right now, yeah, I'm not so worried.
So
I want her to embrace music because she's got a talent for it, and that she can sing and she can write. And I think it's such a valuable way to express yourself and to work out emotions and tap into your own emotions. I just think it's like, I just wrote my dreary poetry. She can actually put it to music and play. Like, I just think it's such a gift.
right.
And I hope she continues more with that. I mean, she's worked with the same music teacher for 4 years. She's still shy about singing her own stuff to him.
At jamlab.ca, I heard.
At jamlab.ca.
jamlab.ca.
Is that what it is? Sorry, Shira.
Yeah, let's get in the plug. But JamLab, they're great. But my son plays guitar.
Yeah.
He's gotten quite good, I think. And I am so jealous.
Yeah.
Right. And not jealous. I'm happy for him. I'm not like, I'm not the type of person that's like, don't do that because but I just, the fact that he can sit and just amuse himself for hours and open doors and opportunities for himself that he didn't have.
Right.
I think, and it's so much easier these days in some ways to learn because there's so many opportunities, and that we would have to sit down and practice and do this and do that and play old standards or something like that just didn't appeal to us. And now they can turn on YouTube. Yeah. Or go to the jamlab.ca and learn something that is good for, that does it well. It's great. And did we miss any?
There's one funny story I think I told you about that. This is like the one thing, this is my dread. This is how obsessed I was. I want to share this one story, how obsessed I was with the Dead. I was on tour in '87. I was on my way to Red Rocks, which is just this fantastic, Red Rocks outside of Boulder.
Yeah.
And then there was Telluride. So it was this Colorado tour with Harmonic Convergence. It was like the end of August. I called my dad and he said, you got into McGill, you have to come home. We got to get you into residence. It was like mid-August. And I was like, I'm not coming home. I'm not missing Red Rocks and Telluride. I'll just go to York. And my dad's like, what? Are you crazy? Are you going to throw your whole life away on a rock band? Like that's,
Hey, I went to York. It's not quite throwing your life away going to York.
are you kidding, Dad? 5 great shows. What do you mean? And I didn't come back. And this was, before the days of any other connection other than me picking up a phone. And I didn't come home, and I went to York because I didn't want to miss a couple concerts. And I hope my daughter doesn't do that. But
well, that's the funny thing is that you live these experiences and you remember the things that you did, and then you look and you go, oh my God.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's so much of a more dangerous world out there. And is it really? And, it didn't seem so dangerous back then, but, it's interesting stuff. And so you ended up at York, which is kind of like, for those who don't know York, it's a school just in sort of suburban Toronto, and it's pretty dreary. It was a campus that was built for California.
Yeah.
They placed it in, open concepts with wind tunnels.
Wind tunnels.
They placed it in the middle of Toronto, and in the winter, it's just a miserable place to be. And it's mostly a commuter school and not a whole lot of fun. And McGill, on the other hand, is a wonderfully social school, right in the heart of Montreal. And in terms of experience, I would think that most people would agree that the McGill student experience would be much more desirable for people than the York student experience, I would think. But you were prepared to give that up for 5 shows?
I just didn't think ahead. Like, when you're that young, I wasn't like this careerist. I didn't have any master plan. I still kind of don't at 52.
Who does? Who does?
I just was never a planner, but I will say this is sort of a sad ending to that, is that my dad passed away just after I graduated. And so I say at the end of the story, as crazy as it was, I would have had no adult time with my dad had I gone to Montreal. I lost him at 23. I went to jazz clubs with him. I had all that time as an adult through university when you're like, taking intro psych and, I wrote a whole paper on jazz just because of him. I had great teachers. There's a lot of creativity. I was in the creative writing program with Stephen Page, who's my cousin, who I actually got to know at York. And, I just would have missed out on all that adult time with him. So I was meant to.
So it's another gift that the Grateful Dead gave to you.
Thank you, Jerry.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So I think this is great. I really enjoyed this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to talk about the group a little bit, because I know it's been mentioned in your other videos that I met Steve through his music group, and it's such an eclectic group of people. And I've become quite lazy in terms of finding new music, and like I was definitely a mixtape girl, and definitely, with the Dead tapes as well, and making mixtapes. And I'm getting inspired to get back to my Spotify playlist again.
Right.
I did one for my 50th. And I'm just really, really enjoying it. And, everyone's sharing things that are very unique, and there's people that are constantly searching. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot of fun, and I love having the diversity of experience, and the reason why I'm doing this is because we have a lot of really passionate people in the group. And that's why I'm taking the time to kind of interview them, to understand their story and try to figure out music and its importance. Like I sit and I wonder, why is music so important to me? And I don't really know myself why it's so, like, why it resonates. I think it has a little bit to do with the fact that I get goosebumps from music a lot. And that's my, like, I hear something and if I like it, it's like, ooh, like it's like tingling kind of thing. Right. And I think that I have that at a higher rate than other people. And that's a little bit of it. But I'm trying to understand it, and I love it. And I really enjoy doing these things, and I really, really appreciate your time, and this is great.
Thank you. Well, look, music speaks to our soul, and it touches us in ways like, I always say, like, sometimes you just hear a voice and you have to know who that is, like,
right.
Or it just speaks to you. And it's like, that's why it's so hard to say who's better or who's like, and even these contests, I have challenges with that, because it's like, it's so personal. And someone might think this band sucks and another person thinks this is the best band in the world. So
Right.
why is that?
Yeah, no, the contests sometimes are artificial, but it is a way to get people to come out of their shell
Yeah,
and talk about it, which is
yeah,
the whole point. The results aren't the point of it.
right.
It's
It's the journey.
it's the journey, and
There
I
you
think
go.
that that's fitting. All
Yes.
right, thanks so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.